The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and welcome to today's ISCA ICANN webinar series on personal branding. Before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items. We're going to keep everyone on mute to reduce background noise. If you have questions, you can type them into the question box, and they will be answered. I will try and answer them as they come through, but if I don't get to them during the presentation, I will answer them at the end. So I'm going to try and watch both what I'm talking about and the question box as they come in. So thank you all for joining me. I am Britannia Mori. I'm the Director of Communications for ICANN. I also represent ICANN on the ISCA board. And today we're going to talk about personal branding, which is how to market yourself, your program, and your role as a school counselor. So there's a lot of things we're going to talk about today. As I said, my name's Britt. There's my email address. I've been in higher education for about 14 years. I've been on the ISCA board as an ICANN representative and the communications marketing chair for 8 years. And this is what I do every day, communications. So I am happy to help bring this message to school counselors and help with advocating for the school counselor role, which is such an important part of every school. So advocating for what you believe in is critical. And for your role specifically, especially because so many school counselors, you're the only one in the building or you're one of two in the building, your role can be a mystery to some members in your building. So if you don't advocate for what you're supposed to be doing and for what you believe is your role and the place for your program, you can't assume that people know what you're supposed to be doing and what your role is. So if you don't ask for it, people may not assume that you need it. If you don't tell people what's important, they may not know that that's something that they should be aware of. So personal branding is all about self-advocacy. And in the role of a school counselor, that's also advocacy for your profession and your program. So we're going to cover a couple different areas of self-advocacy. We're going to talk about personal branding, establishing your work identity, how to use data as part of your advocacy, and then some best practices in putting these concepts into place. So where do we start? Personal branding and self-advocacy starts with an internal dialogue of you defining your role. And so you have to think about some self-discovery. What are your key functions when you think about your role? Where do you shine? Like, what are the parts of your role and your job that you're outstanding, you shine, they're the best part of what you do? Think about when people seek you out for help and they want you to be part of a project, what are they asking you to do? What do people already recognize you as being someone who is good at something, or it's an area of strength? So think about and reflect on that. And what are you the go-to person for? What are people coming to see you for? What does that mean in your situation? What are you known for? Personal branding is about self-realization. So you have to think about your personal goals and align that with also what you want to be known for. So think about, though, there's two different things there. What are you already known for, and what do you want to be known for? And identify, are those two different concepts, or are those the same thing? Or are there a couple of things you want to be known for, and right now you're only being recognized for one of them? So understanding where you want to be recognized and where you want your role to go and what your role should be in line with the ASCA model will help you set up some personal goals. And then those goals are going to help you align with your self-advocacy. So knowing your role, knowing what school counselors should be doing, and some of those things that sometimes get tossed on your plate that really should be someone else's responsibility. knowing your role, knowing what you should be handling, and then setting your personal and your program goals around that role definition. And it is important to have personal goals and program goals. I mean, you're setting up a school counseling program, but you can have some personal goals for yourself within that program, but then also overreaching goals for your entire program, especially if you are part of a counseling team. Then you should have individual goals within that team, but then you should also have team goals that are part of the program goal. And then you want to make sure that you're aligning your daily work with your goals. And once you've established what those goals are, you need to share those goals. And that's sharing them within your department or your office. That's sharing them with your administrators and then sharing them with the building. Goals are much easier to forget about and to disregard if no one knows you're trying to reach them. But once you've said it out loud and you've hung it up on the wall and you've said, this is what we're doing, this is what we're striving to achieve, you've set the bar, you've set your goal, you've told people about it, and now there's going to be a little bit more expectation and maybe hopefully some assistance in filling those goals for your program. So determining what your goals are. So set goals that scare you and excite you at the same time. Goals should scare you a little bit because they should push you outside of your boundaries, push you to attain the next level of greatness that you haven't yet achieved. If you set a goal that's easy to attain, that maybe you're almost already there anyway, there's going to be less motivation there. You need to set goals that are going to help you and push you to become the next great version of yourself. And you also want to make sure you're exciting yourself. Something that's easy to attain, you're not going to get very excited about that because you already know how to do it. You're already there. You're just now saying, okay, I'm gonna finish this up. You want to make sure you're setting goals that help you reach the next level. So, determining your goals. We need to look at needs and values, interests and passions, identify your strengths, your freak factor. So what's your unique quality that makes you different and unusual, and use it to your advantage, and your personality. So this is a good rubric to kind of start creating for yourself as an exercise to help you determine what your goals should be. So your needs. Scale your needs from basic to full potential. And this is going to give you your starting point and then where you need to go. And going back to that, your goals should scare you and excite you. Your basic to your full potential, that should be that full potential is where you're scaring and exciting yourself. You're setting goals to where could I be and how do I get there? What do I need to do to scale up to my full potential? Those are my needs. Your values, your core principles and standards that give you your purpose and your meaning. They help you determine your attitude and your choices and your actions and reactions to things. What are your values? Write down your core principles, because every goal that you set should circle back to your core principles. And your core principles should help you determine what your full potential is going to be and help you determine what your needs are to get there. What intrigues you and motivates you? Where does your interest and passion lie? People don't become school counselors on a whim. You're passionate about helping students. You're passionate about education. You're passionate about seeing them succeed. But what within that intrigues and motivates you? What part of your role really, that's the part that you're super interested in, and maybe as part of your program, that's where you're going to focus first, and you're going to build that out. That could be one of your strengths, but make sure you're identifying all of your strengths. What are you good at, and what are you already succeeding at? Because by identifying strengths, areas of strength that you already have, that could lead you to see how those could play into helping you in your scale up from basic to full potential. And I know I said freak factor earlier and read this description. For me, figuring out what makes you different, what you bring to the table and makes you unique, that is your advantage. That's your wild card. That's what you're going to bring to the table that nobody else can bring. And so let your freak flag fly is kind of where I go with this one. Find that thing that makes you unique and embrace it and use it to your advantage. And then make sure your personality is coming through. School counseling is such a personal role. It's a personal career choice. And so much of yourself is put into being a school counselor that you really should let your personality come through your program. So that was determining your goals from your personal side. Now we've got your program side, which should also intersect with your goals. What is the mission and the vision of your program? And then what's your personal professional mission and vision? So determining your mission on a personal level, expression clarifying what you're all about, and your vision is your ideal vision of how you will use your mission. You set a personal professional mission and vision, and then that should lead you to your program mission and vision. Now, if you're working through the ASCA model and trying to implement all of the elements of the ASCA model, you'll know that setting up a program mission and vision is a key part of the ASCA model. So this is not only going to help you on a personal level, but this is going to help your program grow as well. So if you don't already have a mission and vision for your personal self and your program, that's one of your first steps, because all of your goals should relate to meeting your mission and your vision. And the last part on determining goals, you need to push yourself. I said this at the beginning, we don't set easy goals. You set goals that scare and excite you. If you don't push yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. No one's going to come along and hand it to you and say, here it is, no problem, no work for you. You have to determine where you want to go and be the one that pushes yourself to get there. So once you have your goals set, we talk about telling the world, share it far and wide, share your goals. You need to tell the world who you are and what you stand for. And part of branding isn't something you write down once and then you put it in the drawer and you forget about it. You can write it down, you can put it on your website, but for it to really work, you need to live it. It needs to become a fundamental part of who you are and what your program stands and aims to achieve. So what do you stand for? What do you want to achieve? Convey your brand, live your brand. So once you set your goals and once you determine your mission and your vision, you need to live it. Once you've set your goals, then we need to talk about how do we measure our goals, because data leads, we're going to have a whole section later on about data. Data is what helps you convince people to let you keep doing what you're doing and to take it to the next step. So how do we measure success? Well, how do you measure success? What do you determine to be success? And how does your administrator measure success? Before you set out to determine what data you're going to collect, you need to figure out what data is going to help you succeed. What does your administrator expect to see from your program? What does the ASCA model tell you you should be utilizing in terms of data, and how can we use that to talk to administrators and to talk to your colleagues? And then how do you personally measure your success? So then you need to ensure that your success measurements align with your program mission and goals. So what you've set for your mission, what you've set for your goals, then we determine success measurements to determine that. Are you meeting your mission? Where's your evidence that you're meeting your mission? And then once you've met a goal, what's the next step? So we set goals to achieve them, but then we don't just stop there. We need to decide, we're on that scale up from basic to full potential. Once we've met a basic goal, then what's the next goal to get us to the next level? And the next goal and the next goal until we reach that full potential. And then we set a goal for maintaining our full potential. And maybe even, is there another level of full potential that we didn't realize when we were down at the basic level? Is it going to be easy? It shouldn't be. But once you've achieved that goal, that's been hard, that you really pushed yourself to achieve, it's going to be absolutely worth it. So how do we establish our identity? So this is one of my favorite quotes. I love Lily Tomlin. Pretty much everything she does is gold. But she has a great quote. I always wondered why somebody doesn't do something about that. Then I realized I was somebody. What can you do in your program that changes whatever that is? That could be attendance issues. That could be a prevention program, a bullying program. That could be career and college readiness. Whatever you determine that to be should be within your goals. And you can lead the way. You don't have to wait for someone else to come along with the solution. You can be the solution, and you can be the leader in figuring out what that next step is. And that's part of establishing your identity. Be a leader. Have daily conversations about your program and your goals and the purpose of your role. Everyone has an annual review process. I know every district is going to be different in what this looks like, but you should be using that annual review process and your contract reviews to establish your role and to talk about your role and where you're going and where your program is going and what you want to accomplish and how you're going to do it. It shouldn't just be a one-year thing, though. Throughout the year, you should be having administrative, faculty, and staff discussions. Your role is a leader in your school, not a one-man or one-woman department. You may be a one-person department, but it's not a one-person job. So you should be having discussions with your colleagues and with your administrators about your role and how everyone can take part in those activities and in those discussions and in those lessons, so that everyone understands where your program is coming from, where you're coming from, the goals of those activities, and how everyone should be taking part. You want to create a team dialogue. If you are part of a counseling team, everyone should understand the program goals, their unique role in meeting those goals, and have constant communication with the team so everyone understands and is on the same page. Be a communication point. That's a way to confirm your role once you've established it, is being the communication point on those topics so that people know they can come and talk to you about those areas that you're known for. So when we talk about establishing your identity, earlier we talked about being the go-to person, figuring out what you are the go-to person for. What do people already recognize you for? Well, once you've established that, embrace it. Be the go-to person for unique value-added opportunities. Make sure that you've got that role defined, and then embrace it. Get on your administrative radar and show your value to them. Make sure you're a team player, but that you're keeping your program goals in mind. Setting up brand identity and self-advocacy doesn't mean that you say no to everything that doesn't automatically fall within your role. We have to be a team player. We don't want everyone to think, well, they're in their own world, they're not going to help us with things anymore. You want to be a team player, but you also want to keep your program goals in mind. Everything in balance. Seek out opportunities to branch out in areas in which you can expand your skill set and meet the goals of your counseling program. So status quo should never be the goal. You should always be seeking out new opportunities and looking at ways to meet your program goals. Volunteer for projects that shift your direction towards the meeting of your program goals. And if there are no volunteer projects that you can volunteer for, look for ways that you could create those, or talk to your team or your administrator about where the holes are, where are the gaps in your building or your district that need to be addressed so that you can further meet those goals. And then develop new skills that will add value to your position and your program. Seek out PD. So professional development, you're doing it today. You thought that this webinar sounded like something that could be of benefit to you, and you're seeking out the professional development to start self-advocacy. Do that in other areas as well. look for ways that you can take advantage of professional development to improve and enhance your counseling program. So when we talk about data and advocacy, the best way to establish your value is to prove your value. So show your process, show your perception, show your results and your outcomes all through data. So how do we do that? What's our process look like when we're talking about data? How do we track that? What did you do and who did you do it for? How many students were impacted by that process? How many interventions did you have? How many small group sessions did you have? How many classroom lessons? How many individual sessions? Now, individual sessions or interventions, I know that there's going to be some confidentiality to some of those, but that doesn't mean you can't report on the number of things that you did. It also doesn't mean you can't give a non-specific description of the activities that you're conducting. So look for ways that you can track and record the things that you're doing in a way that still keeps your confidentiality where it's needed. It's going to be a lot easier to say, well, I did 10 individual sessions and I did an intervention with a group of students that were having some disagreements, than it is to say, well, I talked to some students. Well, how many students? What did you talk to them about? You may not be able to give the specifics, but you need to give some detail so that they can see what your process looks like, what your activities look like. Perception. Pre and post test data. Look for student and teacher perceptions. Ask them, I feel, before an activity, and then ask them the same questions after, and get some before and after data. Look for attitudes, knowledge, and skills. One example for an intervention. So before you do an intervention, my behavior has an impact on my learning 1 through 5 Likert scale, and ask teachers similar questions. Then do your intervention. And then after your intervention is complete, resurvey the students and teachers and see if there is a change in the answers. It's a very easy way to get some data on the perceived impact of an activity that you're doing. And when we talk about results and outcomes, we want quantifiable data. So what are your attendance rates? How many behavior referrals do you have? What are your IO assessments looking like? Do you have MAP test scores? How many career assessments have you done? How many things, track and count everything and look at how you can use that data to report on, your results and your outcomes, what you're doing, and then improvements from year to year. So once you start tracking all of this, what are you going to do with it? Because it's great to have data, but it doesn't mean anything if it doesn't say something. So each form of data that you collect should show the impact that your counseling program is having on students. So if you're monitoring attendance, you could be looking for chronic absenteeism, and then that would show the need for an intervention with a specific student. If you're monitoring behavior, it's going to show you Tier 1 and Tier 2 concerns. So look for ways that you can show that the data is highlighting an issue or highlighting a success. So once you've started setting goals and collecting data, you can start really advocating for your role. And self-advocates become empowered. And that's what you want to do. You want to empower yourself to feel like your position matters, what you're doing is important, and that other people can see the impact that your position and your program is having, not only on individual students, but on the culture and the community of your building and of your district. So asking for what you need, what you want, and what you're worth requires practice. You need to practice self-love and start asking. This can be hard. It was hard for me when I started out to think about, asking for what I need, talking about what I need. It seemed like It would just be easier if I kept quiet, stayed at my desk, and just, focused on getting my job done. But self-love and asking for what you need helps you be more productive. It helps you be more successful. So it's really important to get over the anxiety that sometimes comes with saying I need something or I want this to happen, and to ask for what you need, to be vocal about your program needs and your professional needs. Ensure that your day is focused on your program goals and your mission by showing your successes and the needs of your students. Once you start setting your goals and collecting data that supports those goals, it's going to be a lot easier to ensure that your day is focused on what you should be doing and not some of the other added extra things that might get dropped your way, because people are going to become more aware of what your role is and what you should be doing and why you should be doing it. Not just because you say, well, this is what my job is, but because you have data and program goals that say, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. This is how it's helping our students. This is how it's helping our district. And that's why I need to focus on these things today. Develop a one-page success sheet that shows your program mission, vision, goals, and successes, which I'm going to show you an example of here in a second. And then create a kudos file for yourself. And there's going to be a couple different reasons that ways you can use this. But first and foremost, having a kudos file, a pat yourself on the back, an atta girl file is what my mentor called it when I first started, an atta girl file. When you get feedback, when you get positive feedback from your colleagues, from parents, from students, you keep that. If it's an email, you print it out. If it's, a letter, a thank you card, whatever, you start creating a file and you keep that. Because one, you're going to have a bad day one day, and you're going to be struggling to remember why you're there and why you care. Because we all have those days, and that is the day that you pull out the kudos file and you remind yourself why you've set your goals, why you've pushed yourself every day to work as hard as you do. So it's going to help you. You keep it for yourself. That's one reason. Two, that annual review or that proof of how you're being successful and how you're meeting your goals, your kudos file does that. Let other people tell your success stories as well. That is qualitative data. So keeping a kudos file of positive successes from your program is part of advocating for your role. So I'm going to switch out here for a second. I'm going to show you. So this is a one-page advocacy sheet. So like I said at the beginning, I work for ICANN. I'm the communications director, and we do a lot of fundraising. And one of the things that we have to do when we're fundraising is show our success. And we don't sell a product. We don't sell anything. We are our reputation. We are our programs. We are, 11 people going out and giving presentations to students and parents and talking with school counselors and providing professional development. How do we track that and how do we show our success? This is our one sheet. ICANN by the numbers. And so you can see, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit at the top here. We have our numbers, how many customers we served, how many appointments we had, how many FAFSAs we completed. FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid, if anyone doesn't remember that. How many presentations did we give in a year? How many training events, curriculum lessons, fairs, and exhibits did we attend? How many phone calls did we take from parents and counselors? How many resource and newsletter subscriptions do we have? How many website visitors? Those are all pieces of data that show our impact across the state of Iowa. We scroll down a little bit, we can talk about the demographics of our customers. So we show that 20% of our customers have identified themselves as belonging to a race other than Caucasian. And comparing that to the overall population of Iowa, we serve a very large minority population. 2/3 of our customers make less than $50,000 per year. And 43% are first-generation college students. So they have no family members that are guiding them through this process. We are their first resource. And here down at the bottom, we have our program impact. And so these we take from surveys. 99% of our attendees indicate that they're better prepared for the process because they attended one of our events. They agree that our experts are knowledgeable in subject matters presented. So we give surveys at the end of our presentations, and then at the end of the year, I compile those surveys, the answers to those questions. And between our demographic survey and our program impact survey, our satisfaction surveys, I get these pieces of data. And then through our tracking of how many things we do, I have our overall numbers. So that's our data points, our quantitative data. And then our qualitative data is over here with our customer thoughts, because on our surveys, we always leave a space for customers to leave comments. And when we survey counselors, we also give them a spot to, give their feedback, their comments on a presentation or an event that we held. And we pull out the ones that make the biggest impact, and we put those on here so that someone can see that this parent at Southeast Valley High School, she makes a really great point about ICANN services. She lives in a rural, low-income area of the state. She's not near an urban area. It would be really difficult for her to get to one of our offices. We came to her school. We came to her community, and it made all the difference for her. We talk about, problems that we solved with college students and their FAFSA forms. And then we also share counselor thoughts. So, which, highlights professionalism, highlights what it would take if ICANN wasn't around, highlights the positive feedback that they're receiving from parents. So this is an example of a one-sheeter that would show your success. Now, I gave this, I was asked to repeat this session. I gave this session at last year's ISCA conference. And one of the session attendees from last year's conference contacted me this year. And it was to share their version of this one-sheeter that they had been inspired to create based on this session from last year's conference. And I did ask them if I could share that. They said, well, I've been asked to repeat that session as a webinar. Can I share how you took the ICANN by the number sheet and used it for your program with students? So this is Kennedy High School in Cedar Rapids. They have a Gear Up grant program now. And this was the summary for last year. So we're just going to zoom in a little bit and see what they did. So over here, college and career readiness, exposure to college and career. 203 student and parents attended the open house. 47 students attended the college fair. 230 students went on college tours. 155 students completed a job shadow. And I would guess that as you're using this sheet, this person would be able to reference their role in setting up all of these events. So 203 students and parents attended the patio open house. This is how I was instrumental in creating that event. 155 students completed a job shadow. This is how we connected our students with those job shadow opportunities. So you can see how creating a sheet like this helps you advocate for your role in this success, and then you have the data that backs that up. And then they put in student stories, photos of their students taking part in different opportunities. We have testing and survey stats, Canvas class stats, the partnership opportunities. So this is a great example of how this Gear Up program started monitoring their student information and then created a one-pager. And you take this page in with you whenever you're having conversations about the success of your program or the impact of your program, and you have your data, your qualitative data on one side and your quantified data on the other side. And you've got a one sheet that helps you summarize exactly what you want your message to be. So when you're advocating for your role and you have this sheet, it helps you avoid this cartoon. You should not be afraid of your evaluation. It shouldn't, I mean, you're going to have some nerves about it because it's a review, but you should be ready for it. You should be ready to walk in and show your progress for the year, show what your goals were and how you've worked towards meeting them, how you have met some of them, bring in this one sheeter and be able to say, here's the data. This is what I accomplished this year. This is where I want to take it next year. I am ready to go. You want to be engaged in your review process. You're not here to be average, you're here to be awesome. And I really think that applies to the school counselor role because you're asked to do so much and there isn't mediocre. That's not how students succeed when their school counselor is mediocre. You're awesome. Your role is awesome. And the fact that you're here trying to figure out how to do it and how to talk about doing it at a higher level, you're already on your way. So come into the process with your data, with your goals, and make sure that you have questions about, going back to that administrator expectation, but also with questions about how you can take it to the next level. Focus on your key objectives, what your plan is, what your program goals are that make sense for you, your school, and your program. You always want to make sure that when you're presenting this information about the goals that you've set and your role, that you're doing so in a way that you make sure you're talking about how it benefits the school and the administration and the students. You don't want it to sound like all of your goals are self-serving, because that's not, I don't know all of you personally, but I could guarantee that that's not your objective. You're not self-serving. School counselors generally aren't self-serving. So even though self-advocacy sounds a lot like you're bragging, what you're really doing is talking about how what you're doing benefits everyone else. And it can be a tough conversation if you have some old school administrators who haven't gotten on board with the changes to the profession, the changes to school counseling. If you're still called a guidance counselor, I know that's a tough conversation to have, but a necessary one. Old ways don't open new doors. So bringing in the ASCA model, talking about the expectations of today's school counselors and the difference between guidance and school is important. And there is a great tool to help you do this. So when you're advocating for your role, I know it's frustrating that there is no official school counselor evaluation tool. Many, if not all of you, have to use the teacher evaluation form, which does not look at school counselor requirements or roles or what the ASCA model expects. So this was created by the Iowa School Counselor Association, and it's an evaluation supplement specifically designed for school counselors. And so we're going to switch over real quick here to the ISCA webpage. And this evaluation is free. You can download it and use it with your administrator to understand and look at your levels of performance. And the evaluation supplement goes through each area and aligns with the current teacher evaluation form so that you can translate that into the counselor role. And what is really helpful is there are these 4 videos that talk to you and your administrator about how to use the supplement so that you're being evaluated on what a school counselor should be doing and not what a teacher's expectations are, but what a school counselor is supposed to be doing. And this is self-advocacy too. This is helping to further define your role as a school counselor, not as a teacher who does other stuff, or not as a guidance counselor. So check out the videos. There's the overview for school counselors, and then there's an overview video specifically for administrators to help them understand the role of a school counselor. And then there's the evaluation supplement for school counselors, and it goes through the standards. So there's one video that goes through standards 1 through 4, and another video that goes through standards 5 through 8. So this is an excellent self-advocacy tool because it shows how your program is designed to go with the ASCA model, how your program is set up to meet the expectations of school counselors, and how your administrator can look at your role in the right light and context. Let me switch back. So if you want to find this on the ISCA website, I'll just show you real quick. On the home page, the supplement is right here on the left, and you just click here and you get back to that page I was just on. So, and while we're on the ISCA homepage, I'm going to put a plug in. If you haven't registered for conference yet, you can do that. And if you haven't, even if you're not coming to conference, if you haven't ordered your Iowa Needs School Counselors t-shirt, you have about 2 weeks left to get your orders in. All right. Get back to the presentation now. I just figured I was on the website. I might as well do that little plug. So advocate through the correct kind of evaluation for your position. Have an open dialogue with your administration so that you have a sense of the year where you're standing, and that it's not all just happening once at that review time at the end of the year. Have a continual conversation with your administrator. Let them know what's happening. Give them, semester or quarterly updates on some data, what's been happening in your area, how your program goals are progressing. And then you'll also have a stance of how that's being perceived, and you'll know where you stand, which is always important. You need to have that same open dialogue with your colleagues. Involve faculty and staff in groups and discussions so they understand your role and how it helps them and the students succeed. And don't wait for them to ask you what you're up to. Like, create those opportunities to have those open dialogues. Look for professional development days where maybe you can, present for a short period of that professional development day and let people know what you're working on and what opportunities they have that either you can help them or they can help you with whatever you're focused on at that time with your goals. Get your teachers involved in your data collection. So you can talk to them about, based on this post data, these students are struggling with this concept. Let me know how they're interacting over the next week in your classes, and then do interventions or special work with the selected students based on teacher feedback. That's just an example. But get the teachers involved in what you're doing. Show them how they can assist you in helping students that are facing barriers or trying to overcome obstacles that just might need a little extra help. So this is our summary for the day. Set goals. Stay quiet about them. Tell people, but then work quietly on your goals. Smash the shit out of them. Clap. Give yourself a congratulations, and then repeat. Do it over and over and over again. You're going to set your goal. You're going to meet that goal. You're going to surpass that goal, and then you're going to set a new one and reach until you get to your highest potential. Because Dr. Seuss says it best, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. You're the one that knows what your role is and what your students need and what your district needs and what your building needs. But if you're not out there saying, this is who I am, this is what are the goals of this program are, this is how we can help our students meet these challenges, who's going to do it? You are the best advocate for your position. You are the best advocate for school counselors, and I know you can do it. And there are tons of resources out there that can help you do it. So you just have to set your personal vision and mission, set your program mission and vision, develop goals to meet those, and then get to work. gather up your data, work every day towards your program goals, and talk about it. Let people know what you're doing and why it's important. And never be afraid to toot your own horn and say, this is where we're succeeding and this is how it's benefiting our students. So if anyone has questions, nothing came through while I was talking, but if you have questions about any specific point or how to make that transition, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'll offer up, if you are looking at creating a one sheet and you need some help with that, or you want to bounce ideas, I'm always happy to help with that. In my previous life, my undergraduate degree is in graphic design. I'm not saying I can design it for you, but I would be happy to help you bounce ideas and talk about, what you're thinking about putting together or how you might pull things together. Oh, here we got our first question. Let me see. Yes, the PowerPoint is available. On your webinar menu, there should be a handouts tab. If you're not seeing it, you can click view in the menu. You should be able to download the PowerPoint from there right now, but it will also be posted with the recording of the webinar on the ISCA and the ICANN websites. So yes, the PowerPoint will be available, as will the sample handouts, the one-sheeters, and the school counselor evaluation guide is also a handout that's attached to the webinar, but will also be available for download. Any other questions? Well, I am so glad. I'm getting just some thank yous and some one sheet. I'll be in touch with you comments. So I look forward to hearing from you guys individually. That's fine. And I'm glad that you're finding this to be helpful. I have a passion for education, and being on the ISCA board these last 8 years has really focused that into the importance of school counselors and the importance of what you do every day. And so I am one of your biggest advocates. Anything I can do to help you raise awareness for your role in your building, reach out and let me know. You can also reach out to any ISCA board member. That is why the board is there, is to help you figure out what your next step is. So let me know if there's anything I can do to help you with any of this. And have a great afternoon.